Hey YouTube, it's my 69th video. And being more than a little childish, I just couldn't help myself. You may want to know, a British humour magazine defines a Jehovah's Witness as a sexual position where a man has intercourse in an apartment or house doorway. For example, after I left the bar with that chick, we went back to my place and I gave her a Jehovah's Witness on my porch. Witnesses are much more ridiculous than persecuted. In fact, they're the ones doing the persecuting. Isn't it them calling people mentally diseased or worldly, shunning family and sheltering child abusers for Jesus? And with their obsession with tight pants and what women should and shouldn't be wearing, even ISIS gives them thumbs up. But a debunked God passing into obscure irrelevancy isn't only reserved for Jehovah and his little band of ISIS wannabes. The god of Roman war becomes a chocolate bar, the goddess of love a girly pubic hair shaver. Mumbo jumbo, a god we simply laugh at, whilst pagans became April Fools. In a generation or so, what's the betting Jehovah is only known as a delightfully irresponsible and casual pastime, something you regale your friends with down the pub. There's so much ridiculous about being a witness. I sometimes wish I had the delivery to match the foolishness. These poor deluded people are so deceived and deceivable, for some reason can't get their heads around the common law and common sense concept of caveat emptor, or buyer beware, or more plainly, think. From the following clip, can you spot who the witnesses would label the mentally diseased apostate?
Then I shall make use of this starship.
It will be your chariot!
Excuse me.
It will carry my power to every corner of creation.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
Bring the ship closer.
I said, what does God need with a starship?
Funny thing is, we can replace Starship with donations, field service sales reports, a human governing body, our sacrificed children, or any of the other crap the society demands in God's name. In fact, witnesses are so suggestible. On top of the above, you can tell them what to wear at their own expense, mind, make them ignore child labour laws, make them hand over their sales earnings, and they still think they're in a religion, not being scammed. Whilst, let me remind you, they call us mentally diseased and claim persecution when we ask them to look at themselves. How can you help people like that?
All right, but apart from the sanitation, the medicine, education, wine, public order, irrigation, roads, a fresh water system and public health, what have the Romans ever done for us?
When witnesses go on about Satan's terrible world, I just want to play this clip. While Satan was giving us penicillin, giant plastic boobs, Ferraris, liberated females, the internet, Viagra, sports, more boobs, toilet paper and other good stuff, what did Jehovah give us? That's right, he gave us a book of nonsense. Genocide and more genocide. Nothing of practical use and the same shit ISIS offers. And absolutely no evidence is even there. So we can't even be certain he gave it to us either. But Jehovah's Witnesses somehow can't see it. Trying to have a logical, thoughtful conversation with a Jehovah's Witness about the difference between a divine and infinite being and some sad old money-hungry geezers somewhere in America is impossible, especially when you're having to deal with this quality of thinking led by an elder here at your local congregation.
Exactly. So, logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood.
And therefore,
A witch! A witch!
Flawless logic if you're a Jehovah's Witness. And if at any point you have any questions or doubts or, God forbid, suggest checking facts, this is what you can expect from your closest friends and family, no less.
And you have no place in this hall.
But an even stranger thing is they're not doing it because they want to. It's because they can't tell the difference between a book, a possible potential maybe God, and those evil bastards somewhere in America. They do it for the same reason this guy does.
Oh, he was cute. And I could tell by his body language that he was a submissive. And that he just needed someone to tell him what to do and keep him in line.
Oh, and Mistress knew what I needed.
Okay, some might be saying that it's fine if this guy chooses to live this way, and I'd probably agree too if it wasn't for the poor kids caught up in their parents' stupidity. No wonder 2/3 of Jehovah's Witness kids are too smart to fall for it. The other thing I find funny is because they have a committee bossing them about, as opposed to one Judge Rutherford, they think they're not in a cult, but their kids know.
They were discovered back in 1999 on the top of a very high volcano, about 6,000 metres high, so it's obviously very cold up there. And there were 3 bodies found, a 13-year-old girl and 2 younger children too, one a 4-year-old boy, another 5-year-old girl. So quite a macabre discovery though, because they were the victims of child sacrifice, a practice that was quite common during the Inca time.
Serious question here. Tell me, what's the difference between leaving your children to die on a mountain when an Inca governing body tells you, or leaving your kids to die from withheld medical attention when the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses says so? There's none at all. Both governing bodies make exactly the same claims. Please think about this. In fact, the witnesses are more cruel. They stand and watch their children dying when the Incas just couldn't bear to watch and ran away. The truly awful thing is this cult has the terrible heartlessness to gloat over the child sacrifices they demand and get from their mindless sheep. This cult proudly puts some of the faces of the kids they kill on their cult magazine. I just don't have the words to express how disgusting this is. The governing body of this cult commit religious murder almost daily, and the sheep send their lambs mindlessly to slaughter. And then they call us mentally diseased. But those Incas had reason to be ignorant. We live in an age of abundant information, and if you make one last attempt to drag them into the rational thinking world, this is what you get.
Not listening. Not listening.
And despite all the information freely available to us, witnesses insist on forcing their foolishness down innocent and naive special people's throats, even when we've already proved over and over they're in a cult, with a history of false and failed prophecies and constantly changing doctrines. You'd think they'd be embarrassed going back to the same tired householders saying, "Forget what we said about 1975, it's the 1914 generation now. Oh, hello, Mr. Householder, it's me again. Did I say 1914 generation? I meant generations. Jesus forgot the S." It's witnesses, Jehovah's Witness people like this, that hold human progress back while spreading and practicing useless and stupid Bronze Age bigotries for absolutely no reasonable reason. But if there's one thing you remember from this vid, I want it to be this.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
If you could just remember that last clip, maybe you'd let your children get medicine, give them and yourself a chance of a happy and fulfilling life. The only life you can be sure of, by the way. Maybe you'd protect your kids from Jehovah's Witness paedophiles and treat people that think for themselves with a little respect, rather than just calling them names. I really can't see how you can get past this. I've got to say I've enjoyed 69 in each and every one of you, except the guys of course, but I'd like to play out with something that gives an idea of how witnesses look to those of us that think for ourselves, independently.
Great wall of prophecy, reveal to us God's will that we may blindly obey.
Free us from thought and responsibility.
We shall read things off you.
And do them.
But don't think I do this to persecute witnesses, or because I think they're stupid. I do this because they've been deceived. Don't forget I took the time out of my fabulous life to make every one of my 69 videos. I do it because I love witnesses. Some of the closest family I can't speak to are stuck there, and I care regardless of the lies the governing body tells you. and I'm sure I speak for the entire ex-Jehovah's Witness and apostate community on that last point. And it's because the ex-JW community regularly experience an overwhelming level of blind, biased, brazen and willfully twisted logic and lies from witnesses that we get tired, cranky, angry, amused, sleepy, irritated, frustrated and bemused. But it's always love that keeps us at it. Doesn't this remind you of dealing with a 3-year-old? We do this because we love you. We're tired of being the only adults at the toddler party, and we don't need more toddlers joining them either. It's time to grow up.
I know it's hard to grow up. I know it's hard to grow up. But it's time to grow up. I know it's hard to grow up. I know it's hard to grow up. I know it's hard to grow up. But it's time to grow up. But everybody gotta grow up, grow up. And if you fall, get back up. And just remember, everybody gotta grow up.